At midnight, my trail camera caught her at my gate with bolt cutters. I bought that mountain cabin for silence, not for a woman in a pink coat to bill me for a road I plowed with my own hands. At first, I thought it was just another HOA trick. Then I saw my cabin shaded on their fake map, my private road renamed, and my gate touched after midnight. Stay with me because by the time the snow melted, that $520 bill turned into a county courtroom problem. And if you like stories where quiet folks stand on deeds, truth, and grit, subscribe and ride this one out with me. I bought the mountain cabin for silence, not neighbors with clipboards. That was the whole point of Mercer Ridge. No traffic humming past the windows, no lawn committees, no smiling board presidents measuring the color of your mailbox, just pine trees, a cold creek below the switchback, and one gravel road climbing hard enough to make weak engines beg for mercy. I paid cash for the place because I wanted no bank standing over me and no stranger telling me what my land was worth. The cabin sat above Silver Ridge, higher than the last row of vacation homes, past the lower bridge, past the old cattle guard, where the road narrowed and the snow came early. It was not fancy. Cedar siding, steel roof, wood stove that smoked if the wind came wrong. But the deed had my name on it, and after years of renting rooms and hearing other people's doors slam, that mattered more than marble counters. 2 weeks after I moved in, I finished stacking the last of my winter firewood along the north wall. My gloves were stiff with pitch, and the air smelled like split pine and diesel from the old plow truck idling near the shed. I was about to shut the tailgate when I saw the envelope taped to my front door. Glossy white paper, gold lettering, a little pine tree logo stamped in the corner like it was trying to look official. Silver Ridge Homeowners Association. I stood there a second, snow crunching under my boots, and almost laughed before I even opened it. Inside was a notice printed in bold. Snow Maintenance Assessment. $520. Due immediately. Below that, in smaller print, it said my property had been entered into the Silver Ridge Winter Service System as a benefiting mountain residence. Failure to pay would result in late fees, compliance review, and possible suspension of shared road privileges. Shared road privileges. That was the phrase that made my jaw tighten. I looked past the porch rail toward the gravel switchback I had spent 3 weekends repairing myself. I had filled the potholes with crushed rock. I had cut 2 drainage trenches with a shovel when runoff froze across the bend. I had plowed that road from my gate all the way down to the county line twice already, because if I did not, nobody else would. No HOA truck had climbed that hill. No Silver Ridge plow had crossed my cattle guard. No board member had so much as tossed a handful of salt on the lower bend, where tires slid toward the creek. Yet here they were, billing me $520 to maintain a road my own hands had kept open. I took the notice inside and laid it flat on the kitchen table. The cabin was quiet, except for the stove ticking and the wind pressing against the windows. I read the notice once, then again, slower. My name was spelled right. My cabin address was right. Even the parcel number looked close enough to fool somebody who did not keep closing papers in a fireproof box. That was what bothered me. A wrong bill is noise. A correct address on a fake bill is intent. At the bottom of the page was a signature. Sharon Bellamy, President, Silver Ridge, HOA. I had heard the name once from the man at the feed store. He said it the way people say bad weather is coming. Sharon ran Silver Ridge like she had a deed to every tree on the mountain. Fines for porch lights, letters over woodpiles, warnings to residents who parked trucks where visitors could see them. I had shrugged it off then. Their problem, not mine. Now her letter was sitting on my table. I pulled my own deed from the metal file box under the bed. Then the survey. Then the road maintenance receipts from the gravel company, the fuel receipts, and the invoice for the plow blade I had mounted on my truck before the first storm. One by one, I spread them beside the HOA notice. The line was clear. Silver Ridge HOA stopped at the lower bridge. Mercer Ridge Road began on my parcel. My cabin was not inside their boundary. My road was not listed as a shared road. Their covenants did not touch my land. I should have thrown the notice in the stove. Instead, I folded it back into its envelope and placed it in a new folder. On the tab I wrote, Silver Ridge HOA. A man who has lived long enough learns the difference between an annoyance and a warning. This was not about $520. Not really. Somebody had entered my cabin into their system. Somebody had decided my road belonged on their list. Somebody had taken a boundary that stopped at the bridge and stretched it uphill with printer ink. I stepped back outside before dark and walked to the edge of the porch. Below me, the road curved through the timber, clean and open where my blade had passed that morning. Beyond the lower bend, the Silver Ridge homes sat under snow, their roofs glowing pale in the last light. From up here, they looked peaceful, quiet, harmless. But that letter in my hand said otherwise. The next morning, I was going to drive down to the HOA office and ask Sharon Bellamy one simple question. Why was my cabin already marked inside a system that had no right to know my name? I took the notice, my deed copy, and the recorded survey, then drove down Mercer Ridge Road with the plow blade still mounted on my truck. The road was clean where I had cut it open before sunrise. On the lower side, past the bridge, the Silver Ridge lanes were still packed with dirty snow and frozen tire ruts. That difference alone was worth more than any argument I could make. The HOA office sat beside the old ski rental shed, painted white with blue trim, and a brass sign screwed crooked beside the door. Silver Ridge Homeowners Association. Underneath that, someone had added a smaller plaque, Winter Safety Administration. I stared at that second line for a moment. It had not been there when I drove through town the week before. I knocked once. The door opened like she had been waiting on the other side. Sharon Bellamy stood there in a pink wool coat, white gloves, and boots too clean for any woman who claimed to manage snow roads. Her hair was silver blonde, cut sharp at the jaw. Her smile came quick, but it did not reach her eyes. "Mr. Mercer," she said. That stopped me before I said a word. "You know who I am." "Of course. We know all mountain residents. I'm not one of your residents." Her smile held. "That depends on how you define resident." I stepped inside because she moved back like the meeting was already scheduled. The office smelled like printer toner, cinnamon coffee, and wet carpet. A wall map of Silver Ridge hung behind her desk. Colored pins marked homes, roads, service areas. At the top edge of that map, where the mountain climbed toward my cabin, somebody had drawn a blue shaded zone in marker. My cabin sat inside it. I walked closer. She watched me see it. "That right there," I said, pointing at the blue mark. "Who authorized that?" Sharon closed the door behind me. The board approved an expanded winter service boundary. There's no recorded expansion on my deed. This is not a deed issue. It's a community safety issue. That road is mine. The road benefits the community. "No," I said. "It benefits me because I maintain it. Your plow doesn't touch it." She picked up a folder from her desk like she had been waiting for that line. "You benefit from the cleared access roads below your driveway, emergency response coordination, avalanche monitoring, and winter infrastructure planning." I looked out the frosted window toward the street where two residents were digging out a buried Subaru with garden shovels. "You mean that winter infrastructure?" Her mouth tightened. I laid my survey on her desk. "Silver Ridge ends at the lower bridge. Mercer Ridge Road begins here." I tapped the boundary line. "This is recorded, county stamped, not optional." Sharon did not look at the paper. She looked at me. Boundaries change when community safety requires it. The sentence came out smooth. Too smooth, like she had practiced it. I felt something cold move under my ribs that had nothing to do with the weather. I had spent enough years around contracts and county road bids to recognize a bluff dressed up as policy. But this was different. She was not misunderstanding the boundary. She was replacing it. "Show me the recorded document," I said. She folded her hands on top of her folder. "The board minutes are available to members." "I'm not a member. You are listed as a provisional benefiting property." "Who listed me?" "The board." "On what legal authority?" Her eyes sharpened. "Mr. Mercer, people move up here thinking independence means exemption. But when storms hit, everyone depends on the same mountain. Everyone pays their share." "I pay my share in diesel, gravel, and steel," I said. "You sent me a bill for work you didn't do. You are refusing a lawful assessment. I'm refusing a fake one." For the first time, the smile disappeared completely. Behind her, a printer clicked awake. A sheet slid out. Sharon turned, picked it up, and handed it to me without reading it. Second notice of non-compliance. My name was already on it. The timestamp said 8:12 a.m. I looked at the clock on her wall. 8:13. "You printed this before I walked in." She lifted her chin. I anticipated resistance. That was the moment the meeting changed. Before then, I thought maybe I was dealing with a petty HOA president fishing for money. Now I knew she had prepared a file on me before I ever answered the first letter. I folded the notice and put it beside my deed. "You should be careful, Sharon." Her eyebrows rose. "Is that a threat?" "No. It's advice. If you're going to redraw land in Idaho, you better have more than a blue marker and a board vote." Her face flushed, but her voice stayed low. "You have 7 days to pay before daily penalties begin. After that, we review road access privileges." "My road," I said. "For now," she answered. I left before my temper could do her any favors. Outside, the wind dragged loose snow across the parking lot, and my truck sat there with mud on the tires and plow scars on the blade. Real work, real road, real ownership. In my mirror, I saw Sharon standing at the office window, watching me drive away. And all the way back up the ridge, one question burned hotter than anger. Who had given her permission to redraw my land? By the time I reached the cabin, I already knew the answer was probably nobody. People like Sharon Bellamy did not need permission if everyone around them acted like her confidence was proof. That was how fake authority worked. It did not kick in your door first. It sent a clean letter, waited for you to pay, then used your payment as evidence that you accepted the lie. I was not giving her that. I parked beside the woodshed, left the plow blade lowered, and took photographs before I touched anything. The road behind me, the blade edge packed with snow, the tire tracks running down Mercer Ridge Road, the county bridge marker half buried below the switchback. Then I went inside, opened a yellow legal pad, and wrote the date across the top. Snow log. Under it, I made 4 columns: time, road condition, work performed, evidence. It felt excessive for about 10 seconds. Then I looked at Sharon's second notice on the table and kept writing. That afternoon, I mounted a dash cam inside the plow truck and aimed it low enough to catch the blade cutting snow off the gravel. I put one camera on the porch facing the upper road, another on the pine above the cattle guard, and a third near the lower bend where Mercer Ridge Road met the county line. I checked the angles twice. Every vehicle coming up would be recorded. Every inch I cleared would have a timestamp. The next storm hit before midnight. Snow came hard across the ridge, dry and fast, hissing against the steel roof. By 4:40 a.m., the road had 6 inches on it. I pulled on my coat, fired up the old pickup, and rolled out with the dash cam blinking red. The plow blade hit the road with a metal scrape that ran through the cab and into my bones. I pushed snow from my gate to the first bend, then down to the creek cut, then farther to the lower bridge. The headlights caught every marker, every fence post, every blue shadow under the pines. At the county line, I stopped, got out, and filmed the Silver Ridge side. Their road was untouched. No plow grooves, no salt, no tire tracks except one set from a resident who had made it 20 yards before giving up and backing into a drift. I stood there in the dark with my phone recording and said the date, the time, and the location. Then I turned the camera back toward my own road, clean and open behind me. By sunrise, I had 3 hours of footage, 22 photos, and one simple truth Sharon could not talk around. The only maintained road above the bridge was mine. For 3 days, I repeated the same routine. Plow, photograph, log, save the footage to a hard drive and a cloud folder Ethan Rowe had once told me to use for contracts. Ethan was an old friend, a land use attorney down in Boise, and I could already hear his voice in my head. Do not argue facts with people who profit from confusion. Build the record. On the third afternoon, I drove down just far enough to inspect the HOA side again. A silver crossover sat sideways near the Silver Ridge mailbox cluster, half stuck in frozen slush. A man in a parka was trying to dig it out with a child's plastic shovel. He looked up when he saw my plow. "You with the HOA?" he shouted. "No." He laughed once, bitter and tired. "Figures. They took our road fee and told us the contractor was delayed. I helped pull him out because leaving him there would have been wrong, but I logged that too. Time. Location. HOA road unmaintained. Resident stranded." When I got back to the cabin, a new email waited in my inbox. Subject: Final reminder before enforcement. Sharon had attached a balance statement. The $520 fee had become $675 with administrative costs. At the bottom, in red, it said failure to comply may affect emergency access prioritization. That was not a fee notice anymore. That was a threat. I printed it, added it to the folder, and wrote one sentence beneath the day's log. They are tying payment to emergency access. The cabin went quiet after that. Not peaceful quiet, the kind that sits against the windows and listens. Just before dusk, motion flashed across the porch camera feed on my phone. I opened it expecting a deer near the steps. Instead, I saw 3 figures climbing the road through blowing snow. Sharon Bellamy was in front, pink coat bright against the white, clipboard tucked under her arm like a badge. Behind her came 2 men in Silver Ridge winter jackets, one carrying a camera, the other holding a roll of orange inspection tape. They stepped past my private road sign without slowing, and Sharon looked straight into my porch camera before lifting one gloved hand and pointing at my cabin. I opened the door before they reached the steps. The wind shoved snow across the porch boards and snapped at the edges of Sharon's pink coat. She had 2 men behind her, both wearing Silver Ridge winter jackets, both pretending not to notice the camera above the door. One held a small digital camera. The other carried orange inspection tape and a folded metal stake. "Mr. Mercer," Sharon said, raising her voice over the storm. "We are here for an emergency snow safety inspection." "No, you're not." Her mouth tightened. "Excuse me? You're on private property without permission. Turn around." The man with the camera lifted it and photographed my porch, the woodpile, the plow truck parked by the shed, and the steel gate at the head of the drive. Each flash hit the snow like a little spark. The other man moved toward my private road sign. I stepped off the porch and planted myself between him and the post. "Touch that sign, and you'll explain it to the sheriff." He froze and looked at Sharon. She smiled, but the weather was starting to work on her. Snow stuck to her hair. Her boots sank past the clean leather into slush. She was dressed for a meeting, not a mountain road. "We are documenting unsafe independent road management," she said. "Your refusal to participate in coordinated winter service creates risk for the entire community. The entire community stops at the lower bridge. That is your interpretation. It's the county's survey. Surveys can be updated, not by you with a marker." The two men shifted behind her. They had heard enough to know this was not going the way she promised them. Sharon reached into her folder and pulled out a laminated sheet. "Under Silver Ridge Emergency Authority, the association may inspect benefiting properties during winter conditions." I looked at the sheet. No county seal. No recording number. No statute. Just HOA letterhead and her signature. "That paper doesn't give you access to my land. It gives us a duty." "No. It gives you a costume." Her face changed then. The polished neighbor act cracked, and something harder showed through. "You moved here 2 weeks ago," she said. "I have managed this mountain for 9 years. You managed your HOA, not my cabin. You don't decide where our authority ends." The words hung there, sharp as the wind. I felt my temper rise, but I kept my hands open at my sides. That mattered. The camera was recording, and people like Sharon knew how to turn one raised hand into a story. "You just said that on video," I told her. Her eyes flicked up to the porch camera, then back to me. For the first time, uncertainty crossed her face. "I do not consent to being recorded. You walked onto posted private property under a camera. This is harassment. This is evidence." She drew herself taller. "Then here is more evidence for your file. You are refusing inspection, obstructing emergency access review, and interfering with HOA personnel." I nodded once. "Good. Say it clearly." The man with the orange tape lowered his hand. "Sharon, maybe we should—" "Do not speak for the board," she snapped. That was when I saw the real dynamic. Those men were not enforcers. They were props. She had brought them to make her trespass look official. She turned back to me. "You have 48 hours to pay the outstanding balance and register for winter service. If you refuse, we will escalate." "To who?" Her smile came back thin and cold. "Law enforcement." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because she was standing in 6 inches of snow on a road I had cleared that morning, threatening to call the sheriff because I would not pay her for clearing it. "Go ahead," I said. That was not the answer she wanted. She stepped closer. "You should think carefully before making enemies here, Mr. Mercer. Mountains get dangerous when people stop cooperating." There it was. Not a policy, not a fee. A threat wrapped in weather. I looked at the cameraman. "You recording this too?" He lowered his eyes. Sharon turned sharply and started back down the steps. The 2 men followed, one of them nearly slipping where my shovel had cleared a narrow path. At the private road sign, she stopped long enough to photograph it again. Then she pointed at it and said, loud enough for my porch camera to catch, "That sign is part of the problem." I stayed outside until they disappeared around the lower bend. Inside, I saved the footage in 3 places. Then I wrote the incident into the snow log. Unauthorized entry, false inspection claim, threat of law enforcement, attempt to document private road sign. 5 days later, just after breakfast, I heard tires climbing slowly up Mercer Ridge Road. Not Sharon's SUV, a sheriff's cruiser. And when Deputy Aaron Pike stepped out, his hand resting near his belt and his eyes moving from my cameras to my gate, I knew Sharon had made good on her threat. I walked out with both hands visible, not because I had done anything wrong, but because I knew how stories got shaped before facts arrived. Pike was broad-shouldered, late 30s maybe, with a winter jacket zipped to his chin and the careful face of a man who had driven into too many neighbor disputes that turned stupid. "You Caleb Mercer?" he asked. "That's me." He looked past me at the porch camera, then at the private road sign. "We got a complaint from Sharon Bellamy. Claims you obstructed an HOA safety inspection, threatened personnel, and used surveillance to intimidate them." I almost smiled at that last part. Surveillance. On my own porch. I'm here to sort it out, not take sides. Then come inside and read. That got his attention. Most people argue first. I handed him paper. At the kitchen table, I laid everything out in order. The first snow fee, the second notice printed before I even finished talking to Sharon, my deed, the county stamped survey, gravel receipts, plow fuel logs, and the snow log I had started after the office visit. Pike did not interrupt. He read like a man used to lies but still willing to let documents speak. When he reached the survey, he slowed down. "This your parcel line?" "Yes." "And Silver Ridge boundary stops here?" "At the lower bridge." He tapped the paper once. "That is not close." "No, sir. It is not." I opened my laptop and pulled up the porch footage. Sharon and her two men appeared on the screen, walking past the sign. Pike leaned forward as Sharon announced her emergency snow safety inspection. He watched her photograph my property, threaten enforcement, and say, clear as a bell, that I did not decide where HOA authority ended. Pike's expression tightened at that. I switched to the lower road footage. My plow truck cut through the storm before dawn. Then the camera showed the HOA side, buried and untouched, a resident stranded near the mailbox cluster. I showed him the log entry matching the timestamp. Pike sat back and rubbed one hand over his beard. "Well," he said, "that is not the complaint I was given." "No, it is not." He reached for his radio, then stopped and looked at me. "Mind if I call the county parcel office from here?" "Please do." He stepped onto the porch, phone to his ear, boots creaking on the cold boards. I could hear pieces of the conversation through the door. Parcel number: Mercer Ridge, Silver Ridge HOA. Recorded covenants: Lower Bridge. When he came back in, his face had changed. "County confirms what your survey says. Your cabin is outside Silver Ridge. Your road is not listed as HOA maintained, not dedicated as shared access, and no easement shows in their favor." Relief should have hit me then. It did, but only for a second, because if a deputy could confirm that in 5 minutes, Sharon could have confirmed it before sending the first bill. "She knows," I said. Pike did not answer right away. He closed his notebook. "I can document this as an unfounded complaint and note her unauthorized entry onto posted property. If you want to pursue trespass, that is your option." "Not yet." His eyes sharpened. "Why not?" "Because I do not think this started with me. I think I was added to something already moving." Pike looked toward the folder tab on the table. "Silver Ridge HOA. You may be right." That surprised me. "You've dealt with her before?" "I have dealt with complaints involving her. Mostly civil. Mostly noise, parking, wood piles, access arguments. Nothing that stuck." He paused. "But she pushes the line. She crossed it." "Yes," Pike said. "This time she may have done that on camera." He wrote something in his notebook, then tore off a small page with his direct number. "Keep your cameras running. Save originals. Do not edit footage. Do not confront her alone. And if she comes past that sign again, call dispatch, not her office." I took the number. "You think she will come back?" Pike looked at the blue-shaded HOA map, still visible in one of my photos from Sharon's office. "I think Sharon Bellamy does not like losing paper wars. He left just before noon." His cruiser rolled slowly down the ridge, tires tracking over the road I had cleared myself. For the first time since the letter showed up, I felt the balance shift. Not victory. Not yet. But the lie had been witnessed by someone with a badge. That afternoon, I scanned every document, labeled every file, and sent a short email to Ethan Rowe in Boise. Subject: HOA Boundary Fraud Question. I attached the notices, the survey, the footage stills, and the photo of Sharon's blue map from her office wall. His reply came 2 hours later. Do not respond to them again without talking to me first. At 4:37 p.m., a certified envelope arrived in my mailbox at the base of the road. Ivory paper, heavy ink, legal letterhead. The first line said I owed Silver Ridge HOA $1,340. The second line said failure to pay could trigger civil action. And the signature at the bottom belonged to a lawyer I would soon learn had no right to threaten anyone in Idaho. The letterhead read Mallory and Vance Land Council, Reno, Nevada, with a silver mountain logo pressed into the top like it had weight. The words were polished: pursuant, delinquent, infrastructure benefit, legal remedy. The meaning was simple. Pay Silver Ridge HOA $1,340 or prepare to be sued. I read it at the kitchen table with the first 2 notices beside it. The amount had grown again. Snow maintenance fee, late penalty, administrative review, emergency coordination assessment, shared infrastructure contribution. Every line sounded official until you asked who had done the work. Then I saw the attachment. A color map. My cabin was shaded blue now. Not marker blue like Sharon's office wall, but printed clean and professional. The label across my road said, Winter Service Expansion Zone. The lower bridge was drawn almost a quarter mile above where it actually stood. Mercer Ridge Road had been renamed Silver Ridge Upper Access. I put my finger on that false line and felt my anger go still. They had not just billed me, they had moved the mountain on paper. I scanned the letter and map, then drove straight to the county records office before the afternoon snow iced the road. The building sat low and square beside the courthouse, all brick, fluorescent lights, and old file cabinets. Behind the counter was Linda Graves, a woman with gray hair pinned tight and the tired patience of someone who had watched people lie with paperwork for 30 years. She looked at the map, then over her glasses at me. Who gave you this? HOA lawyer. She tapped the blue area with one fingernail. There is no such designation in this county. That is what I thought. Thinking is nice. Records are better. She pulled my parcel on the county system and turned the monitor so I could see. Lot 218B. Independent. No HOA covenant. No recorded road easement. No winter district. No pending annexation. The official line stopped exactly where my survey said it stopped. At the lower bridge. Linda printed the plat, stamped it with the county seal, and slid it across the counter. Then she looked back at the fake map. This creek is wrong, she said. I leaned in. She was right. Whoever made the map had shifted the creek east, just enough to make my road appear connected to Silver Ridge service land. A small lie. A careful one. Can you flag this? I asked. I already am. She picked up her phone. Nobody submits altered boundary maps around here without leaving a footprint. That sentence changed the room. I drove home with the official plat in a cardboard envelope on the passenger seat. The sky had gone iron gray, and the road ahead was starting to freeze. At the cabin, I photographed the certified letter, the envelope, the fake map, the county plat, and the postmark. Then I sent the whole packet to Ethan Rowe. His call came at 8:19 that night. Caleb, he said, no hello. Do not pay them. Do not call Sharon. Do not send anything informal. How bad is it? That depends on who created this map and where they sent it. It came from Mallory and Vance. Silence. Then I heard papers moving on his end. There is no Mallory and Vance licensed in Idaho. Brent C. Mallory is licensed in Nevada, and even there, his practice history is ugly. Suspension, reinstatement, complaints over boundary disputes. He cannot threaten civil action in Idaho as your opposing counsel unless he is properly admitted. So the letter is fake? The threat is unauthorized. The map may be worse. I looked at the blue-shaded copy on my table. Worse how? If they used that map only to scare you, it is intimidation. If they submitted it to a county office, a lender, an insurer, or a public board, now we are talking about document fraud. The stove clicked behind me. Outside, the wind scraped snow along the porch. For the first time since the bill appeared, the fight felt bigger than my road. Ethan kept talking. Send me everything in original format. Keep the envelope. Preserve metadata on the photos. And Caleb? Yeah. They are not trying to collect a snow fee. They are trying to create a record that your land benefits from their system. Why? So later they can say you accepted their authority. I stared at the first notice, the second notice, the lawyer letter, the fake map. It was all there. One piece at a time. A paper trail built to make a lie look old. I hung up and added a new label to the folder. Boundary fraud. At 12:18 a.m., my phone lit up on the nightstand. Motion alert. Lower gate. The trail camera opened to a dark SUV crawling uphill with its headlights dimmed. Two figures stepped into the snow carrying bolt cutters. For a few seconds, I did not move. I just watched the grainy black and white feed from the edge of my bed, the glow of my phone lighting the cabin wall. The SUV stopped below the gate, engine still running, exhaust drifting low over the snow. One figure was broad-shouldered, younger, moving fast. The other stood straighter, coat collar high, head tilted like she was inspecting a problem she had already decided to remove. Then she turned toward the camera. Sharon Bellamy. I was out of bed before my feet felt the floor. I pulled on boots, grabbed my coat, and opened the live feed on the kitchen tablet. The lower camera gave me a wider angle now. Sharon's son, Derek Bellamy, worked the bolt cutters around the chain. Sharon stood beside the gate holding a flashlight, its beam cutting across my private road sign. Derek squeezed the handles once. The chain held. He cursed and tried again. Sharon stepped closer to the sign. The microphone caught her voice through the wind, thin but clear. Take it down. If there's no sign, he can't prove it was private. That sentence went through me colder than the snow. I did not run down there. I did not grab a rifle. I did not give her 1 second of footage she could twist into fear. I stood in my kitchen and hit record on every device I had. Derek kicked the bottom rail of the gate. Metal rang across the ridge. Then he lifted the cutters again and moved toward the lock. That was when the trip alarm triggered. I had wired it the week before after Sharon's storm inspection. Not dangerous, just light and sound. 2 flood lamps snapped on from the pine above the gate, bright enough to turn the road white as noon. A siren screamed from the post, sharp and ugly, bouncing off the timber. Derek stumbled backward, dropping the bolt cutters into the snow. Sharon froze for half a second, her face fully lit, eyes wide, mouth open. Not scared exactly. Caught. Then she grabbed Derek's sleeve. "Go," she snapped. They ran for the SUV. Derek slipped once near the ditch, scrambled up, and yanked the passenger door open. Sharon looked back toward the gate, toward the sign, toward the camera she had missed. The feed caught her face one more time before the SUV reversed hard, tires spinning, and disappeared down the bend. The siren shut off automatically after 30 seconds. The mountain went quiet again, but it was not the same quiet as before. I saved the footage in 3 places. Then I called dispatch, not Deputy Pike's personal number. I wanted the report clean. Time, location, trespass, attempted damage to a locked private gate, 2 suspects visible, footage preserved. Deputy Aaron Pike arrived 40 minutes later with another deputy behind him. Their cruisers came slow up the road, lights off, tires crunching over the fresh tracks Sharon's SUV had left behind. Pike did not ask if I was sure. He watched the footage once on my tablet, then again. When Sharon's voice came through saying, "If there's no sign, he can't prove it was private," Pike stopped the video and looked at me. "This is not an HOA case anymore." "No," I said, "it is not." He photographed the tracks, the dropped bolt cutters, the scuffed lock, the gate rail where Derek's boot had left a wet scrape. He bagged the cutters and marked the spot where they had fallen. The second deputy measured the tire impressions while Pike walked to the private road sign and read it under his flashlight. "Posted clearly," he said. "It was posted when she walked past it in the storm, too." I remember. That mattered. He had seen the pattern now. The fake inspection, the fake map, the fake legal threat, now the midnight gate. Pike stood near the gate, snow blowing against his jacket, and made a call from his radio. His voice stayed calm, but the words changed the weight of the night. "Requesting case number for criminal trespass and attempted property damage. Possible witness intimidation tied to ongoing civil documentation dispute." Witness intimidation. That phrase turned the fight in my head. Sharon had not come to collect a fee. She had come to erase proof before the paper trail caught up with her. By sunrise, Pike had taken my statement, collected copies of the footage, and warned me not to approach Sharon or Derek. "I will be contacting them," he said. "You stay clear. I have no interest in talking to her." Good. People like this get unpredictable when the story stops obeying them. After he left, I walked the road alone. The SUV tracks were still there, deep and crooked where Derek had spun the tires backing out. The bolt cutter marks were visible on the chain. My sign stood untouched, but for the first time it looked less like a warning and more like evidence. I took one more photograph. Then my phone rang. "Ethan Rowe." "I saw the clips you sent," he said. "Caleb, we need to move faster. If she is physically trying to remove signs, she is worried about documented boundaries. What do? We stop treating this like a dispute and start treating it like a scheme. I want every notice, every map, every video, every receipt in one packet by tonight. And I want Deputy Pike's report number." I looked down the road Sharon had tried to claim. The road I had cleared, repaired, and now guarded with cameras because a woman with a clipboard thought ownership could be stolen by inches. "I'll have it ready," I said. Before I hung up, Ethan added one more thing. "Caleb, check with neighbors below the ridge. If she tried this with you, you were not first. You were just the first one who recorded her." That afternoon, I found out he was right. I started with the man I had pulled out of the slush near the Silver Ridge mailbox cluster. His name was Carl Dunbar, and he lived 2 turns below the lower bridge. When I asked if Sharon had ever billed anyone outside the HOA, he looked toward the road before answering, like the trees might report back to her. "You need to talk to Martha Keene," he said. "Blue cabin, crooked porch. She's been paying longer than anybody." Martha lived where the ridge flattened before the creek. Her cabin was small, tidy, and older than most of Silver Ridge. A stack of split fir leaned under a tarp near the steps. When I knocked, she opened the door with the chain still latched, eyes sharp but tired. "I'm Caleb Mercer," I said. "I own the cabin above the bridge." Her face changed at my name. Not recognition. Fear. "I paid this month," she said. That one sentence told me more than any explanation could have. I'm not here from the HOA. She stared at me through the crack. Then why are you here? Because Sharon Bellamy billed me for a road I maintain myself, and I think she did it to you first. The chain slid free. Inside, Martha's kitchen smelled like coffee and wood smoke. She moved slowly, but her hands knew exactly where everything was. Without asking, she pulled a grocery bag from beneath the sink and set it on the table. It was full of receipts, folded notices, stamped envelopes, and copies of checks written in careful blue ink. Silver Ridge Winter Safety Contribution. Emergency Road Access Fee. Seasonal Mountain Response Assessment. The oldest one was 5 years old. She said, if I didn't pay, my cabin would be marked low priority during storms, Martha said. My husband was still alive then. He was on oxygen. We couldn't risk it. I looked at the receipt in my hand. $310, then $420, then $600. Each year, the language got bolder. Each notice made the same quiet threat. Pay, or maybe help would come slower when snow blocked the road. That is not how emergency response works, I said. I know that now. Her voice shook, but her eyes did not. Back then, I knew my husband couldn't survive a night trapped without power. Sharon knew it too. The anger that hit me then was different from before. Not hot, not loud. It settled low and heavy. Martha slid one final paper across the table. It was a letter from Sharon herself, signed in blue ink. Failure to remain current may affect winter access coordination and emergency route inclusion. She came here in person after he died, Martha said. Told me it would be easier if I signed the Silver Ridge Voluntary Winter Support Agreement. I didn't sign, but I kept paying. Do you still have that agreement? She nodded and opened a drawer. The document had my attention before I finished the first paragraph. It did not say HOA membership. It said Winter Support Participation. It did not grant services. It created a payment record. Ethan's warning came back clear. They are trying to create a record that your land benefits from their system. Martha's receipts were not random. They were bricks in the same wall Sharon had started building around me. I photographed every page with Martha's permission. Then I called Deputy Pike from her kitchen. He listened without interrupting. How many receipts? He asked. 5 years. Any threats in writing? Yes. He exhaled once. I'll open a supplemental report. Ask Mrs. Keene if she's willing to make a statement. Martha stood straighter when she heard that. I will. Before I left, she walked me to the porch. Snowmelt dripped from the roof in steady ticks. She has people scared, Martha said. Not because she owns anything, because she makes everything sound official. That stops when enough people show the paper. She looked up the ridge toward my road. Then I hope you have enough paper. By dark, I had Martha's receipts scanned and sent to Ethan. He called back within 20 minutes. This is bigger than boundary harassment, he said. She's collecting money under implied emergency authority she may not have. If there are more victims, the county prosecutor needs to see all of it. There are more, I said. How do you know? Because my phone was buzzing with a blocked number. I answered on speaker. A man's voice came through low and strained. Caleb Mercer? Yes. My name is Tom Whitaker. I'm the Silver Ridge treasurer. I looked at Martha's receipts still spread across my table. Tom swallowed hard enough for me to hear it. I can prove where the money went, but I won't say it on the phone. We met the next morning at the county building. Not my cabin, not his house, not anywhere Sharon Bellamy could claim a private ambush. Ethan Rowe drove up from Boise before sunrise, carrying a leather case and the kind of calm that made nervous people quieter. Deputy Aaron Pike was already waiting near the records entrance, coffee in one hand, case folder in the other. Tom Whitaker arrived last. He looked smaller than I expected. Mid-60s, gray mustache, shoulders rounded under an old wool coat. He kept glancing across the parking lot, like Sharon might step out from behind a snowbank with that clipboard. Under his arm was a black binder wrapped in a grocery bag. "I should have done this 2 years ago," he said. Ethan did not soften it. "Then do it now." Tom nodded and handed him the binder. We used a small conference room Linda Graves unlocked for us. No windows facing the street. One long table. Fluorescent light. County seal on the wall. Tom sat with his hands clasped so tight his knuckles went white. Ethan opened the binder. The first page was titled, "Mountain Emergency Snow District, Phase 1. My cabin was circled in red. Below it was a list of properties labeled holdout parcels. Martha Keene's address was there. Carl Dunbar's was there. 2 others I did not know. Beside each address were notes. Elderly owner, medical vulnerability, dependent access, likely to pay, resistant, escalate after winter notice. I felt my jaw lock. Pike leaned over the table. "Who wrote these notes?" Tom looked at the binder. "Sharon. You can prove that?" He pulled out a flash drive and set it beside the pages. Original files, board laptop backups, emails, draft maps, payment sheets. Ethan turned the page. Forged boundary drafts. Fake invoices from a company called Bellamy Winter Logistics. I had never seen their plow on my road because the company barely existed. The registered address matched Derek Bellamy's garage in Coeur d'Alene. Another page showed payments labeled winter road reserves transferred into contractor accounts tied to Sharon's relatives. Martha's checks were in the ledger too. So was my $520 assessment, marked as test enforcement. Upper Mercer. Test enforcement. That was the phrase that made the whole room go still. Ethan read it aloud once, then slid the binder toward Pike. Pike's face had lost all patience. "Tom, how much of this did the board know?" "Not the full thing," Tom said. "Sharon controlled the billing software. She told us the county was reviewing a winter access district, said outside cabins were benefiting from our emergency planning, and had to be brought in before the next storm season." "And you believed her?" Tom closed his eyes. "At first." "What changed?" "She asked me to backdate an approval vote for the expansion map." Ethan looked up. "Did you?" "No." Tom's voice cracked, but he held the line. "That's why I copied everything." Linda Graves entered halfway through, took one look at the fake maps, and swore under her breath. She laid the official county plat beside Sharon's drafts. The difference was ugly and obvious. Creek line moved, bridge shifted, road renamed, private parcels colored into a district that did not exist. "This was built to fool somebody fast," Linda said. "A clerk, a judge, a nervous homeowner. Or all 3, Ethan said. By noon, Pike had called the county prosecutor. By 1, the binder had an evidence receipt. By 2, Martha Keene was on her way to give a sworn statement. By 3, Ethan had drafted a petition for emergency injunctive relief to stop Silver Ridge from sending any more assessments to non-member parcels. The fight moved out of my kitchen and into the courthouse. That shift mattered. For weeks, Sharon had controlled the stage, her office, her letters, her maps, her threats. Now the stage had changed to county records, sworn statements, and stamped evidence forms, and on that stage her confidence was not proof. It was motive. The hearing was set for Friday morning. The notice went out to Silver Ridge HOA that afternoon. Sharon Bellamy was ordered to appear and produce all documents related to winter service expansion, snow district planning, and billing of non-member properties. She called me at 6:11 p.m. I did not answer. She left a voicemail anyway. "Mr. Mercer, You have made a serious mistake involving yourself in association business you do not understand. Tomorrow, when this little stunt collapses, I hope you remember I gave you every chance to cooperate. I saved the voicemail and sent it to Ethan. His reply came back almost immediately. Good. She is still talking. Friday morning, the county hearing room filled before the judge entered. Martha sat behind me, receipts folded in her lap. Tom sat near Ethan, looking like a man waiting for a storm he had helped name. Deputy Pike stood by the side wall with the binder in an evidence sleeve. Then Sharon Bellamy walked in. Pink coat, white gloves, clipboard pressed to her chest, chin high, smile polished. She looked at me like I was the one on trial. She had no idea the black binder was already on the judge's desk. The judge entered without ceremony, a gray-haired woman named Judge Elaine Porter, with glasses low on her nose and no patience in her voice. She looked over the room once, then down at the file in front of her. This hearing concerns emergency relief regarding Silver Ridge HOA's attempted billing and claimed winter service authority over non-member parcels, she said. Counsel, proceed. Ethan stood first. No drama, no shouting, just paper. He placed the official county plat on the projector. The screen showed the mountain as it really was. Silver Ridge ending at the lower bridge, Mercer Ridge Road climbing alone above it, my cabin sitting outside every covenant line. Then he placed Sharon's blue map beside it. The room shifted. Even people who did not understand property law could see the lie. The creek had moved. The bridge had moved. My road had been renamed. A private parcel had been colored into a service zone that did not exist. Judge Porter leaned forward. Mrs. Bellamy, did your association create this altered map? Sharon stood, gripping her clipboard. Your Honor, the association prepared a working service draft for community safety purposes. That was not my question. Her smile flickered. It was prepared under my direction. Ethan placed the next document on the screen. The letter from Mallory and Vance Land Council. This letter threatened civil action in Idaho by a Nevada attorney not licensed to practice here, he said. It demanded money based on the altered map. Sharon's attorney, a thin man who looked like he had been hired too late, stood halfway. Your Honor, the HOA believed. Judge Porter raised one hand. Sit down unless you can show me a recorded easement, covenant, district approval, or county filing authorizing this billing. He sat. Then Deputy Pike stepped forward. The courtroom monitor played the midnight gate footage. The dark SUV, Derek Bellamy with bolt cutters, Sharon holding the flashlight. Her voice came through the speaker, clear enough to make the back row go silent. Take it down. If there's no sign, he can't prove it was private. Martha Keene covered her mouth. Tom Whitaker closed his eyes. Sharon stared at the screen like she was watching someone else ruin her life. Judge Porter's face did not change. Deputy Pike, she said, is this footage part of an active criminal investigation? Yes, Your Honor. Criminal trespass, attempted property damage, and related document fraud concerns have been referred to the prosecutor. Ethan did not push harder. He did not need to. He opened the black binder last. Mountain Emergency Snow District, Phase 1. He read the title into the record, then turned to the page where my cabin was circled in red. Test Enforcement, Upper Mercer, he said. The words hit harder out loud. Then Martha stood. Her hands trembled, but her voice held. She read from her receipts. 5 years of winter safety payments, each tied to letters suggesting emergency access could be affected if she did not pay. She looked at Sharon only once. My husband was sick, Martha said. You knew that. For the first time, Sharon had no prepared line. Tom Whitaker followed. He testified that Sharon controlled the billing system, directed the altered boundary drafts, and asked him to backdate an approval vote. When he said no, he copied the records. By the end of the hearing, the room was not angry anymore. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes when a mask falls off and everyone sees the face underneath. Judge Porter issued her ruling before sunset. Silver Ridge HOA was barred immediately from billing, contacting, assessing, or claiming authority over any non-member parcel above the lower bridge. All winter service expansion notices were void. The altered maps were referred to the county prosecutor. The HOA's financial records were ordered preserved. Every payment collected from non-member properties would be reviewed for refund. Then she looked directly at Sharon. Mrs. Bellamy, community safety is not a license to invent jurisdiction. The gavel came down once. That sound ended her mountain. The weeks after that moved fast. Sharon Bellamy was indicted on fraud, document falsification, and conspiracy charges. Derek took a plea and admitted he went to my gate under her direction. The HOA board collapsed before spring. 2 members resigned. Tom cooperated. Martha got her money back. So did 3 other families who had been too scared to speak until the court record gave them room to breathe. Silver Ridge still existed below the bridge, but its reach stopped where the law said it stopped. At Mercer Ridge Road. The first morning after the refund checks went out, snow fell again. Not much, just enough to cover the gravel in a clean white sheet. I fired up the old plow truck before sunrise and drove down from the cabin, blade low, headlights cutting through the blue dark. At the lower bend, Martha stood beside her mailbox with a thermos. Carl Dunbar had a shovel over one shoulder. 2 other neighbors waited near the bridge with chainsaws to clear a fallen limb. Nobody ordered them there. Nobody fined them into showing up. They just came. We cleared the road together, slow, steady, without speeches. When the work was done, I walked to the old private road sign Sharon had tried to erase. The paint was weathered. The post leaned from years of frost. I took it down and carried it to the shed. By afternoon, I put up a new one. Mercer Ridge Road, maintained by the people who actually use it. I stood back and looked at it while the last snow slid from the pines. They had charged me to plow a road I already maintained. By the time the snow melted, the whole county knew who had been clearing the way and who had been burying the truth.
What I learned out of it was simple. When something belongs to you, whether it's a land, a road, a home, or just your peace of mind, you cannot protect it with anger alone. You protect it by staying steady, keeping records, reading the papers, and refusing to let loud people rewrite quiet facts. Caleb did not win because he shouted the loudest. He stood firm because he had the deed, the footage, the receipts, the map, and the patience to let the two speak in the right room. That is the kind of trend a lot of folks understand. Not fussy, not mean, just a man keeping his throat open and his name clean. Sometimes just in not a big speech. Sometimes it's a stamped document, a neighbor finally speaking up, and a sign that say what was true from day one. If you would have stood your ground on that mountain road, type yes in the comments. And if you have ever dealt with an HOA, a bad board, or someone trying to tell you what you owe, share your story below. And if this story your land, dignity, and quiet courage speak to you, subscribe and stay with us. There are more HOA and rent justice story coming.